That sun is at the perfect angle and we're just gonna deal with it. Welcome back to the van build. I can say that again now. It's been a long time since I said welcome back to the van build. It is not a vlog this week, but instead I upgraded my solar setup. When I did this van build, I installed a single battery with 200 watts of solar on the roof running through my charge controller and then into my appliances. As I've been traveling full time now, I've realized that that is not enough. So I want to give a huge thanks to Battleborn for sponsoring today's video. Not only do I have my hands on some really high quality product, but what has really impressed me about Battleborn is the team that I've worked with. I have been talking with this badass team of women now for a few months, and one of the things that was really important for me was to keep as much of my current system as I could. I don't want to just throw things away that are still usable and quality. So today you're going to see my old system and then what I took out and changed, and the Battleborn and Victron components that I included in the system. I'm going to do a really quick overview of what my current setup is. I'm also going to link my old solar videos. I'll put them up here and I'll also put them in the description so you can see what my first setup was, an extra explanation of it in a second video, and then of course this third video of me doing my upgrade. So to start off with my current system, I have a single deep cycle gel battery that is fed by 200 watts of solar on my roof. Now I'll go ahead and explain the rest. This fuse, which I placed between my battery and all of my positive connections, is going to stay here. I'm not doing anything with this. This fuse is going to stay located where it is. Here I have my two bus bars just to consolidate all of these positive and negative connections. Down here is my fuse block. These are all of my 12-volt appliances with their own individual fuses. And lastly, my 1000 watt inverter. That 1000 watt inverter is currently hooked up directly to my battery. But after talking to my buddy Nick over at Exploration Vans, he is like an electrical wizard guru. He said, don't do that. When I disconnect this and rewire everything with my two new batteries, that inverter is going to be connected to my bus bars. All right, I'm going to start disconnecting this stuff. As you can tell, I'm in a neighborhood, so I don't have a lot of space nor a lot of time to get this done. First line of business, I'm going to disconnect my solar panels from my charge controller. You do not want energy coming in from your solar panels and then them not charging anything. It'll just fry your charge controller. So I'm going to disconnect solar panels first. And this is a good time to mark which one's positive and negative so you don't mix them up. Boom. Positive and negative. Electrical tape, because why not? I'm gonna come up here to the battery and I'll be disconnecting the positive end first. And I think at this point, I'm probably just going to connect my inverter over to my bus bars and just get that done. That feels good. That's wrapped up. So I've got this fuse here, but I do need to remove the fuse from the box because I need a new box. So I'm just gonna work on screwing that out, and I'm gonna leave that as is. All right, moving on to negative side of the battery. I'm just gonna disconnect that. I'm gonna wrap these up. You probably don't have to. I'm actually pretty sure you don't have to, but I'm going to because I'm paranoid. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing with this negative cable coming off of my inverter. I'm just gonna connect it to my negative bus bar. So that's over with. Wow, this is so freaking exciting. Oh, yeah. Oh. All right, I'm going to work on making my box to fit two batteries lengthwise on top of that wheel well. Wow, that's perfect. All right, I just put this in. It's super nice and sturdy here. On this opposite side, I should have shown you this before I put it in. See that? The little eye hook? My plan is to attach like a bungee or a strap to that to strap over each of the batteries. And Akela is extremely bored. But we're gonna do something fun so soon. I should have done this a different way. One battery is in. Woohoo! Wow. A few things about these cables. This is 4 AUG stranded copper cables. All the stuff that I'm using I will link below. So in my first round going at this, I didn't have a crimper because crimpers to crimp this kind of stuff is really expensive, and I figured, you know, I'm not going to be doing this again. What could I do? Well, I slammed it with a hammer, which I learned recently that you should not do that. Turns out that's a bad idea because without a proper crimper, you could get poor quality crimps, which could increase resistance. Increased resistance within an electrical system produces heat. Heat produces fire, which we don't want. What I did to get these made correctly, first I went to an AutoZone and I said, hey, do you guys have crimpers? Do you have already pre-made cables? They didn't have either of those, but they sent me to a car audio place. I brought in my cables and my terminals, and now I have wonderful cables. All right, before I connect my batteries in parallel, I am going to draw out and show exactly how I'm going to install this battery monitor and the shunt that comes with it. But here's the diagram of how I'm going to connect the battery monitor and this shunt. So these are going to be my batteries. Here's my positives on both sides, my negatives. These will be connected in parallel, which means the positive will be connected to the positive and the negative will be connected to the negative. This is the shunt that is going to be incorporated into this system. This is labeled battery only, and this is labeled load and charger. This is all going to be connected to negative cables. What I'm going to do is have the battery side be connected to the negative part of my battery, and then this labeled load and charger, this is going to head over to my negative bus bar, so to my black bus bar. Here is my battery monitor. In the back of this monitor, it's going to have an input, and this comes with the right cable. And then it will also connect to this very clear input here on the shunt. And this right here is the last piece to worry about. So this little positive cable is going to run from a positive terminal on a battery and input into a very clear connection here on the shunt. So I'll be inputting that here where it says battery 1. Keep in mind I will do a full diagram of my system that is going to be more detailed than this, but this is just breaking down these specific parts that was not included in my previous system. I just connected this little cable to my battery monitor, and then this shunt will just go here. I'm gonna take a very quick second to remind you to be really intentional with your tools when working around your batteries. You don't want anything to be connecting your positive and negatives. I can imagine that if some of you are new here, this can feel really overwhelming. Electrical it can be really hard to wrap your head around, and it can feel really scary. I want to remind you guys that I knew absolutely nothing when I first started. I didn't even know that there was a difference in AC and DC. I didn't understand amp hours or wattage. I didn't understand how solar worked. I understood nothing. But over time and through reading a whole lot and creating my own diagrams, I learned how to do this. It felt really important for me to understand what system I was placing in my van so that if anything were to happen, I knew exactly what the issue was and I could take care of it. So with that being said, if you are new to this, if this is stressing you out, I've been there. Believe me, I've been there, and just keep asking questions. There will come a time where it's just gonna click in your head and you're gonna understand it. I promise. We've got battery monitor. All extra wires right now I have pushed back here and kind of tied up together just to be out of the way. This battery monitor is connected here, and then this little red connector is here in the battery 1 slot, but this is going to be connected to positive terminal of a battery. Dang, I think I'm ready to connect my batteries. I'm connecting this positive terminal that runs to my load through this fuse, as well as this extra cable that will connect to the other positive terminal. Phew, I'm sweating just because I'm nervous. I disconnected this positive from my big fuse just so I could focus on connecting the battery first. So I have negative connected to negative right now. So what I'm gonna do now is bring over this positive cable. So I'll have positive connected to positive along with this little red guy that's connected to my shunt. So the batteries are connected in parallel. I've got my shunt connected to my battery. My little battery monitor turned on, and my last connection here is to this fuse, and this always freaks me out because I really don't like it when there are sparks, and there's a good chance that there will be, but maybe there won't be. I don't know. We're gonna do this together. I hate it when things spark at me. Things turned on, which is good, and nothing blew up, which is good. Okay, I am positive to positive, and I'm negative to negative. I hate it when it sparks. I did it. I did it. Okay, connect my solar panels. So this is just gonna be the same thing as when I disconnected it. I marked my positive one. I'm just gonna stick my positive into the little thing, into its home, and then tighten it down with my little Phillips head. Super simple. Here is kind of the finished battery setup. The solar panels are connected back in, and here on my charge controller you can see that the solar panel to battery is working great. And obviously I do have a load, but my discharge controller isn't showing that. So I'm gonna go through what I need to set up that battery monitor and see if that gives me some extra information. All right, I have lights on, I have my heat running and my fridge turned on, and this is the final look at my electrical. All right, here is the diagram of my brand new solar setup. So I have 200 watts of solar. These come down into my charge controller. I just installed 2 lithium-ion Battle-Born batteries. They're connected in parallel. So the positive is connected to the positive, negative is connected to the negative. I have 2 bus bars. One of them is a negative bus bar, and one of them is a positive bus bar. I have that A&L fuse that I mentioned previously in this video, and this is connected to my bus bar. This is just to protect my system. Now, some of the components that I added from Battle-Born are, yes, these 2 batteries, but also a shunt and then a battery monitor. There's a connection on this shunt that says battery only, and I connected that to the negative side of my battery, and then the side that was labeled load was connected to my negative bus bar. There was a very obvious connection from my battery monitor into the shunt, and then a little itty bitty red positive connection into that shunt as well. So for the rest of my system, I have my fuse block. So this is all for my 12 volt appliances. Each of my appliances has its own little fuse, and this is an easy connection because you simply connect the positive end to the positive bus bar and then the negative end to the negative bus bar. These might be swapped on mine, I can't remember. This charge controller over here has a positive and a negative as well. And lastly, I have my 1000 watt inverter. This used to be connected directly to my batteries, but I decided to switch that up and, just like everything else, have it run into my bus bars and make it really easy that way. I think this is a very important time to remind you all that I am not an expert, but I do think I understand enough to do my own system. So make sure that you are checking with people that you know. Call van build companies, see if you can pay them for, an hour of their time to explain some of the things that may be confusing to you. And it never hurts to ask multiple questions so that you're really clear on what you're doing. All right, this new system has absolutely blown me away. I knew that I was going to have more power, but I did not realize that it was going to be to this extent. 2 lithium-ion batteries, that's a lot. I mean, I don't have a lot of stuff in here that pulls energy, but comparing what I had with that single battery to the now 2 lithium ions, it doesn't even compare. There have been nights, just for shits, I wanted to see how much it would affect my battery, and I turned off and on my heater 3 times without any sun out. It was throughout the night. And my battery system went down to like 98%. Where before, if I turned on my heat, my battery would drop like 30%. It's amazing. I no longer have to turn off my fridge at night. I can run my fans throughout the night if I want to now. I can run my heat for much longer and while other things are running. So this has just made my life a lot more comfortable. Well, as for the next few weeks, Akela and I are going to spend some really quality time in the desert. And then we have another build project coming up. So the galley that houses my water and my sink, I will be rebuilding that whole thing. That is kind of a tricky situation considering I don't have a shop, but I do have my friend's house. And the freezer that I plan on installing over here, where you guys are sitting, is going to be in later than expected, and it'll be a really fun time for troubleshooting. I hope that by sharing this and showing how I've tweaked my system, that it gives you a little bit more of information as far as what you want to do for your own build or how you want to change your existing build. And I want to say thank you for showing up every week and watching us, watching this crazy life unfold, and supporting Akela and I. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun.